but as I've been doing commonly, we're going to go to Lebanon and take a look at what Hezbollah's been doing. I always try to bring you the first time we see new weapons that Hezbollah brought out. So this first one, number 20 here tomorrow, is going to be the first time we have seen a first-person view, an FPV drone. This is something you see in the Ukraine a lot. We haven't seen it in the Israel battle space yet. This is the first time that we've seen it. And this is coming in here. We're watching. We're on board. We're on board the attack drone here, and it's going to fly down and hit an anti-drone system called the Drone Dome. It's literally called the Drone Dome. It's made by Rafah, the major Israeli military industrial complex company. So Hezbollah uses their first FPV drone to destroy the system designed to defeat the Hezbollah drone that destroyed their system. These are very expensive systems being defeated here by a very cheap drone. And the fact that the drone is even flying at this point right here is a failure of Israel's multi-billion-dollar aerial defense array. But once it gets in close, that's when the Drone Dome is supposed to knock it down using electronic warfare systems, various types of jamming that's supposed to happen that just we don't see happen there. So it penetrates the multi-billion-dollar missile defense array that the United States and Israel have been, trying to establish for decades. It misses that. It misses their fighter jets that are flying through the air, constantly hunting for these. And then it penetrates deep enough to hit the Drone Dome, that's an electronic warfare system, and disables it. So this is in Matula. We're going to focus on Matula. Matula's in the Upper Galilee. This will be the first place of occupied Palestine that will come back to the Palestinians when Hezbollah takes the Galilee Panhandle, ultimately, at some point. And we're going to show a video here from, there's the Drone Dome. You can see a good shot of it there. And there you can see it landing beside that bird flying by. I watched it a bunch of times to try to figure out if we were looking at a second. It's just a bird, guys. It's not a second drone attack. Okay, so I don't ever do this I've done it a couple times. I showed you an Israeli television report when they were first establishing the Netzarim corridor. I've shown you a couple of Al Jazeera reports that when Qassam gives Al Jazeera footage, we show that. But I'm going to show you today a clip that I put together from 60 Minutes, the flagship news magazine program in the United States, hosted by Lesley Stahl. She's, at this point, pretty much the dean of American television journalism. She's the one, she's got a long history. And this is the first time this is a closed military zone. Matula is a closed military zone. The Israeli military is not letting anybody go into the area. No film crews are going in to film it, in large measure because it's all destroyed and the Israelis don't want people to see that. So it's a closed military zone that no one can access. But back in May, and I've reported on this a couple times, back in May, 60 Minutes did get access to Matula. I'm going to show it to you. Let's watch it right now. It's number 21 tomorrow. Watch how they describe this. There's going to be volume.
Matula has been mostly abandoned by its residents. We saw an eerie scene as we drove through empty streets and no signs of life.
You can see we're going down.
Mm-hmm. We were told that the only residents left spend their days underground in this bunker complex. We met 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐿, a longtime Matula resident. She showed us a war room where other residents, including the town's mayor, monitor incoming attacks from the hillsides of Lebanon.
The hillside Lebanon?
It's Lebanon.
So Hezbollah?
Yes, this is Hezbollah.
The mayor, not the idea.
Of everything
the mayor.
That's happening. Mm-hmm. And we give alerts to the army, and then the army comes.
Are you expecting in your mind that people will return to Matula eventually, or Is this the way it's going to be forever? Do you
חמורה
אז
קדימה.
קודם כל תלוי איך זה ייגמר ומתי זה ייגמר, בסדר?
It depends on how it ends and when it ends.
זה לא יחזרו לפה.
If this will be resolved only through agreement, it is safe to say that we assume that about 30-40% will not come back.
צריך לזכור...
While filming, we were
40%
interrupted by
will
an
not
attack.
return.
Okay, so there's another drone.
It was a drone rigged with explosives.
Another drone coming in. Sorry.
They moved us to another room.
Quickly, please.
We later learned that planes tried and failed to shoot down the drone. The explosion killed 2 soldiers in the Israeli Defense Force reserves.
Yeah. So the Israeli Defense Force reserves are those people that you just saw, the mayor, some civilian that stayed. That's what they're called. The Israeli military calls them reservists, even though they're obviously civilians and they're doing the work. She describes the woman describes being the eyes and ears of the IDF on the border, because the IDF's not on the border because they're scared to be on the border. They're scared to have positions on the border because they got hit so hard by anti-tank missiles early on in the, going back to October 8th in the early stages of the war. So they've abandoned those positions. They've moved their military back from the border, and they leave these civilians as human shields for to be the eyes and ears of this, this military that's telling us that they're about to invade Lebanon. When we're watching that in Matula, which would be a frontline place for Hezbollah, if they came across the border, they would take Matula, and there's no military presence in there. They're relying on the mayor in a bunker to tell them that there's a drone coming, and then they deploy the Israeli military. The Israeli Air Force deploys their fighter jets, their American fighter jets, to try to shoot down these drones, and they fail. And then these civilians then get counted as military when they get hit, which is what we're going to see here, number 22 tomorrow. This is a Tufan anti-tank guided missile. So this is the same class of missile. And you can see it's being fired at a building there. So sometimes when you see these Hezbollah videos, like Hezbollah didn't say that they hit. They don't always say what they hit. They'll say it's an Israeli military position. So we're seeing 2 anti-tank guided missiles hitting this position. And we see these videos all the time, and it looks like, oh, Hezbollah maybe just hit a house, And as Nasrallah always jokes, like, they're not just towers. When you're knocking out their eyes and ears, and all those strikes that Hezbollah hit, all those surveillance towers and all the electronics, knocking down the electromagnetic spectrum for the network connectivity for the Israeli army, makes them rely on civilians and the mayor in a bunker to get on their cell phone and phone them and say that they see a missile strike. But that's what we're seeing here, because this was one of the moments that the Israeli military did admit to it. They said 2 members of Matula's local security team were injured by last night's Hezbollah anti-tank guided missile attack. One seriously wounded, while the other is listed in good condition. The pair, like all local security officers in border communities, are listed by the IDF as reservists amid the war. And this, again, just demonstrates that Hezbollah is able to find these positions. They move between these buildings, these houses, and Hezbollah is able to find these military positions as they move throughout this village of Matula that's been wasted in the way that Leslie Stahl told us on CNN, or on 60 Minutes, sorry, CBS. So it's pretty remarkable that Israel allowed that crew to come in. And in the actual 60 Minutes story, I don't think I said it, in the actual 60 Minutes story, Leslie Stahl says that it's humiliating. It's the death of the North, that they've lost the North. Those are the words that she uses, humiliating, which is just the word that's been used to describe Israeli military operations from the late 1990s through to today. Hezbollah humiliating the Israeli military, driving them out of South Lebanon in 2000, defeating them in days in the July 2006 war, which the ground war in 2006 was effectively a large-scale rescue operation, because the IDF's first units that went in, the vaunted IDF units that were going to encircle Bint Jbeil, where the core of Hezbollah fighters are, the Israeli military didn't even get into the village. They got smoked on the outside of the village and then needed to be rescued. They needed to send armored vehicles up to rescue the soldiers that got hammered. And then those armored vehicles got caught in the valleys, in the wadis, coming up the side of the mountain. Got their convoys of armored vehicles got hit. And that was what the July 2006 war was. It was essentially the ground war element was only a couple of weeks, and it was effectively a 2-week rescue operation to save Israeli soldiers that had got trapped behind the lines, failing in their operation to take over Bint Jbeil in 2006. So this army that is more organized in 2006 than it is now. Now they're degraded. Their materiel and manpower is degraded by 9 months of war, and they're telling us that they're about to invade Lebanon. If you listen to their military planners and politicians, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. The Israeli military are doing crazy things. They've clearly lost their minds. But an invasion of South Lebanon David Petraeus wrote in Foreign Affairs that the Israelis have 15,000 active duty combat troops. So they would have to call up all their reserves again, pull them out of the economy again. And Hezbollah has 150,000 fighters that have been waiting for this battle. They're connected on overland, connected with a hinterland to Syria, to Iraq, where fighters from Syria and Iraq could join the war. Nasrallah's speech last week, he said that they're telling people to chill out because they don't actually need all the people that want to fight in the south. That was the same in 2006 as well. The Christians wanted to fight in 2006 in the South Lebanese villages. They wanted to fight with Hezbollah too. And so I'm not so sure, but Hezbollah is reacting to the Israeli saber rattling in pretty remarkable ways. So last week we watched a 9.5-minute video that Nasrallah said was shot over many days, all over Haifa, all over Israel's most sensitive strategic sites. So that was last week. And then this week, let's do number 25 tomorrow. This week, Hezbollah released this video called "To Whom It May Concern." In case of an inclusive war is imposed on Lebanon, the resistance will fight, Nasrallah says, without constraints, without rules, without limits. And then they released this satellite map, which just has geo coordinates and moves around. It doesn't tell you what any of these places are. It just moves around to all these installations, offshore gas there. You can clearly see that's a port. You can clearly see that's their strategic oil reserve that we saw in the drone. So this video is called "To Whom It May Concern." It's sent by Hezbollah to Israeli military and security and political figures who all know what these sites are. But Hezbollah doesn't say what the sites are on this video. They just move around to each of the spots in the video. And it's called "To Whom It May Concern." Just a real A+ psychological operation here against whoever thinks of a war against us will regret it. Nasrallah said it in his speech a month ago, Habibi, you and whose army, right? Who's the army that you're going to invade? Who's the army you're going to battle Hezbollah with? Is it the one that we've been watching for the last 8 months in Gaza? Is it that army? He said it you and whose army, who's coming to help you, because you're going to need more than that. So let me just give you some of the spots here. So it's Haifa and Hadera ports. It's Ben Gurion Airport, pretty obvious. It's the campus, as it's called, the the main defense and security compound headquarters, the military command and control headquarters that's in a civilian neighborhood in Tel Aviv. It's the Ashdod port. It's Israel's strategic oil reserves. Those are offshore. What it's showing you there are offshore. Those are the offshore gas platforms. They show the Ashkelon power plant. They show the Dimona nuclear plant. They show several military and intelligence bases. And that's the point. The point is that everybody in Israel, everyone in Israel who's making the decision to go to war or planning the war on Lebanon knows what those sites are, and knows that they're in risks, that those sites are at risk. Hezbollah knows exactly where they are. They have precision-guided rockets and missiles that can cover the entire territory. Yeah, like I said, the Israeli military is exhausted and degraded from their battle in Gaza. And so Hezbollah has really turned up the pressure, turned up the psyops from the north over the last few weeks to meet this, to meet the Israeli psyops, which are just terrible, just saying like, we're coming for you. They show a few tanks driving on the back of trucks up the border, and and then their tweet army says they're coming for you, Nasrallah. It's all just a joke, and Hezbollah gives us this like real high grade stuff. So that is the battle on the northern border. Again, this week on the Resistance Report, we went from the very south of the Gaza Strip to the very far north border of occupied Palestine in the Galilee, the first area that will be taken over if there's a war. There's no indication that if there's a ground war into Lebanon, I think there's almost as good a chance that the ground war will be inside Israel as it is for Israel to penetrate Bint Jbeil and fight in Bint Jbeil. I think you're more likely to see fighting in Matula. But again, we won't predict these things. We have enough information, enough facts in this moment to not do predictions and not to not predict, but those are the facts surrounding the situation on the northern border for Israel. So that is the Resistance Report for this week.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on Donate Now. Thank you.